Good morning, everyone. My name is Allison Cairns. I'm with the Leslie Group. I'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy day to join us today. Our guest speaker and expert is Darcy Michaud from HR Covered. Thank you, Darcy, for joining us. Darcy's a dedicated and successful human resource professional with a career spanning over 20 years. He's got a master's graduate from the University of Western Ontario and holds his certified human resources leader designation. And today, Darcy's going to be going through performance management in our new reality. I think when COVID started 2 years ago, none of us thought we'd be where we are today, but here we are. In talking to lots of different employers in different industries, I think our new workforce is reinventing itself. And although people have been working virtually a lot for the last couple of years, as we move forward, we'll figure out what kind of our new reality looks like. Just in conversations with lots of different employers, it sounds like most companies are going to be adopting some kind of hybrid approach. And so with that, employers need to pivot on how do you manage your workforce. In today's world, performance management is an invaluable process to engage and support your employees. Many employers understood this tool in the traditional work setting, but have struggled with performance management when employees are no longer physically in the workplace or physically in the workplace every day. Today, learn valuable information on why performance management is ideal in a virtual work environment and why it's more important than you think. Darcy will discuss the ins and outs of virtual performance management along with its challenges and some solutions. So thank you, everyone, and over to you, Darcy.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for the introduction, Allison. That was terrific. Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be joining the Leslie Group and representing HR Covered for our webinar today, Performance Management in Our New Reality. You'd be surprised. I'm glad so many people have tuned in. You'd be surprised how many, in my experience doing this for over 25 years and doing on-call HR for over 12 years, the majority of employers actually don't have performance management at all. And many of the employers that do have performance management do make a couple of fatal errors that can almost render your performance management system useless. This is an extension of what you already have. So this is taking performance management to the next level, which is doing it virtually, which if I do my job properly, or at least I'm a little bit convincing, you'll see why doing virtual performance management actually has a lot of benefits relative to the in-person performance management that you would do in the office. I'm your host today. I'm the Managing Director of Consulting for HR Covered, and I will be joined by my co-host, Tarheel. He is the HR Covered mascot. I haven't told the CEO that he's the mascot yet, but he's my mascot at HR Prime, so he's the mascot here. He's not just here as a pretty face, he's actually quite intelligent. You could see that he has his designation. He's a certified human resource dog. So the reason he's co-hosting is, as you all know, in COVID times, kids, spouses, pets, they do tend to jump in the background every once in a while. So just in case he decides to be vocal, I figure I give him credit where credit's due. And then, of course, a typical legal disclaimer, this content does not constitute legal advice. Hopefully solid HR advice, though. So we have about an hour, and the hour is inclusive of the questions that you might have. So it is a live Q&A. So if there's anything that we do not cover, by all means, make sure that you ask. If it's regarding performance, of course, if it's about something HR as well. I did not address, just for the purpose of this webinar, discipline and things of that nature that follow when a progressive discipline process is not going well. So if that's a question you have at the end, by all means, save it. I'm happy to address it for you. So what we're going to be covering today, why performance management, begging your pardon, is more important than what you think. What should be your desired outcomes from a performance management system? Why performance management in a virtual environment is really ideal. And it's obviously an opinion, but hopefully you'll share some of that when we're done. And of course, the myths, the real challenge and solutions about managing employees from home. As you may well know, like pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, there was always a stigma that having your employees work from home was somehow not a good idea, that, you know, when the boss is away, the mice will play, for lack of better expressions. So I think our 2-year test tube experiment has really debunked that theory. And I also think that on the front of performance management, you'll see why, in fact, performance management can be even more effective in a virtual environment. So why is performance management more important than you know? So a lot of people that have performance management systems have them for a specific reason, but a lot of performance management systems are not designed to reward employees. And in fact, that should be the most important aspect of your performance management system. In today's culture of the great resignation and trying to retain employees, et cetera, I've seen too many performance management systems that really focus on the constructive dismissal or the constructive criticism. How can you do better? Oh, you're doing great, but this is your next. There's nothing wrong with giving someone a performance management review and at the end of it saying, you're doing a great job. I got nothing. Just keep up the good work. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing better you can do when it comes to things that are retention. Employee praise and value and self-worth means so much. And a lot of employers don't take advantage of it with their performance management process. And you'll see there at the bottom that too many employers use PM as a punitive tool. And I say, this is a mistake. And I say, mistake, you say? Of course it's a mistake. And I'll tell you exactly why. And this is rooted in case law. So performance management in its nexus, if you are planning to take this all the way to the end where someone is not performing and you decide that it's right to separate ways, and you've decided that you don't want to have to pay anything, they're not doing their job, you've done the performance management, you don't believe that you should have to pay out 6, 7, 12 weeks of severance pay, and you want to terminate with cause, you cannot do that unless your performance management system started as a counseling tool, as a non-punitive tool to address concerns, help your employees deal with them, offer them the support they need, and then you go through the process. It's only by your second or third step in, usually your third or fourth, that a performance management system ever even hints at the punitive aspect of it. A matter of fact, if it's done right, it's not actually called termination with cause. It's called non-punitive termination with cause. I know it sounds condescending, but that's actually what it is. The biggest mistake I get from employers time and time again, and this is, I know we're not to the virtual part, but this applies just as equal. And I think we're going to see more of this mistake with the virtual piece, just because of people's lack of understanding, is that they don't have a performance review, they don't have a performance management in place, or they haven't started performance management for a particular employee. An employee is struggling, so they say that they want a performance on employee. It's the word for that is a performance improvement plan, or a PIP. A PIP only exists within a performance management plan. If you start an employee with the PIP, then there's no way that you'll be able to hold termination with cause at the end of it. So it's really super important to know that you don't ever start out a performance management plan in a disciplinary fashion. It has to be non-disciplinary in its nexus. This is the reason most employers use performance measurement, is because they're looking to measure and increase productivity. And the underlying theme of this entire presentation starts and ends here. You'll see here that when you want to increase your ROI, you want to have positive employee engagement. Basically, what you're doing is you're looking at where employees can improve. Yes, you're going to have the employees on the left-hand side of the screen here who are great. And those are the ones that you're going to likely be looking at promotions and succession plans and all those different things. But you're going to have 7 to 8 out of 10 employees that, they could do something. There's something they can improve on, whether it be a personal growth, whether it be company growth. At the end of the day, the reason that you do performance management is to take your company goals and align the performance of your employees with your company goals. The way you do that is to manage, to coach, to put a plan together for your employees. So most employers, that's exactly what they use performance management for. What most employers don't use performance management for is providing a baseline. And as you see in the slide, this is something that is becoming more of a problem for employers as you get older workers, as older workers tend to be off work more, or have injuries, as well when you are dealing with cognitive injuries or cognitive illnesses, and you're trying to get people back to work. All of these things depend on relativity. When you're trying to get somebody back on a return to work plan and get them back to 100%, you could have the job description, and that's all fine. But what they actually did, the job they were doing, all comes out in performance measurement. That's how you establish a baseline. For older workers, and this happens all the time, I'll have a client call up and they say, yeah, we have this employee, they're a terrific employee, love them, but at this point in their career, it's a little bit of a physical job, and unfortunately, they're not able to do the job like they used to. And I go, prove it. and then there's silence on the other end of the phone. I go, prove that they can no longer do the job like they used to. Well, I just know, like I see them walking around the plant or the office every day. And I go, have you ever done performance management? Well, no. And I go, that's your proof. That's your baseline. If you could show that this person was working at this level for all these years, and then all of a sudden they're working at this level, and you could see the steady decrease, there's a plan there for you to be able to sit down and have a conversation with that employee about potentially parting ways, or even severing the employment relationship legally and mitigating your liability. If you don't have performance management, you don't have a baseline, it's more difficult to get workers back to work as workers get older, or just when they get bored and their performance decreases. You can't do that. So this is your proof. So that's one of the reasons that a lot of employers don't think about performance management being important. And that's why I say for some employers, not all of you, performance management is more important than you know. By the way, I talk fast, I'm sorry. This is going to be recorded. So if anybody wants a copy of this, I know it's going to be available to you after. So please don't hesitate to go back and pick up on anything that I kind of flip through, if that's okay. So what should be this subheading for me is kind of important if you're going to get what we're talking about here with the importance of virtual performance management. What should be your desired outcome from a performance management system? At the end of the day, a performance management system should be a measurement of your goals, company goals, relative to the employee's performance, AKA the employee's ability to perform to help you achieve your goals. There's some things that are not going to change. This is not rocket science, hence the rocket. It's not rocket science. Feedback, communication, define goals, they're all staples of your PM process, whether you're doing it in office or doing it when they're at home. None of that never changes. There's no magic formula. The thing that we need to do is to refocus on to relook at what we're focusing on. So this is a frustration for me, and I'm seeing it more now because what you're seeing now, and Allison made a really good point, that in speaking to a lot of her clients and in speaking to most of mine, most of our employers are either looking at continuing on with the working from home relationship or arrangement, begging your pardon, or some type of hybrid. And that's good. But there are a lot of employers, and they're starting to come out of the woodwork, that have no intention of having their employees stay home or do hybrid. They're calling them into the office right now. This mask mandate ending in Ontario and other provinces, people are getting called in en masse all the time. And it makes me wonder if we have not learned anything from the pandemic, because I think some employers haven't. Employees are clearly, it's obvious. If you read any survey, if you read any, retention survey, recruitment survey, et cetera, if you do exit interviews, you're going to hear it. People want flexibility. They want the ability to cut out the hour commute. They want the ability to work from home. They want the ability to work on their own hours at their own time. So sometimes I think that we haven't learned anything. And then on top of that, when you put a performance management system in place and you have this new dynamic, you have this new environment, employers are still using the same matrix and standards as they were in pre-pandemic days when everybody was in the office. Work has changed. Like, it just has. No one's working 9 to 5 anymore. People are getting up and they're working at 7. They're taking 2 hours in the middle of the day to have a break. Then they're working for a few more hours. Then they have dinner and spend some time with their family, and then they go to work at night. How can you, if you're using the same matrix that you were using prior, how could you expect your performance management system to succeed in a virtual world? What we need to do is change our mindset. And this is a key point in this presentation. Employers tend to favor people that they can see. I got to see the white of your eyeballs. If I'm going to pay you 6 figures, or I'm going to pay you 50 grand, or whatever it is I'm going to pay you, I need to see the whites of your eyeballs. I need to physically see that you're working. We need to stop judging people on presence and start judging them on results, outcomes, contribution. And keep this in mind. And I say this to clients all the time. Just because you have a worker who's working a lot of OT, or just because you see that worker who's working late, that does not necessarily mean they're a dedicated, great worker. And that's a bias. That's a bias. You see someone who works late every night and they go to do their performance appraisal, they're going to get an artificially good performance appraisal in some cases, because that's what you see. You're not measuring their outcomes. You're measuring someone who maybe is not as good as their job as the person sitting at the next desk who get everything they need to get done in a regular 8-hour day. Maybe that's why they need to stay late. Maybe they're working overtime because they have other issues that require more extra. Maybe they're trying to earn extra money. there's all sorts of factors that come into the lies that our eyes see that get eliminated when you do virtual performance management. So something to consider. We really need to change our mindset from stop judging people as just showing up for work, hence they're doing a good job, and start judging people by outcomes, results, and their contribution to achieving our end goals. And of course, along that same lines, what we should be wanting out of our performance management system is output, not input. And what I mean by input, again, it goes to how much are you doing around the office? How much paperwork are you doing? How, like, does it take you 8 hours to do a process? Because if it takes you 8 hours to do a process and you're doing it in 6 or 7 hours, then that must be good. The output's all that matters. If you have an employee that can do what one employee would do, and you can physically see them doing something for 8 hours, and you have another employee who could do that same job in 4 hours, who's the more valuable employee? What should you be measuring? The fact that it took somebody 8 hours to get something done that another person can do 4 in? What you should be measuring is output at all times. Again, this starts with measuring and tracking outcomes. And again, you can see at the bottom of this paragraph, the desired outcome of your PM system, thought foremost, 100%, should be measuring results, making sure your employees reach their goals to help the company reach the goals. It's that simple. So why performance management in a virtual environment is really ideal. And I think I've kind of poked around it, but just to drag it out, here's the benefits that I see that when I'm looking at a performance management system, and again, I've been doing this for a long time. So I've done performance management, I've done 360s, I've done 180s, I've done the ones where the employees provide the feedback and we start there. I've done the ones where it's automated, all those different things. This is based on my experience of integrating and doing performance management for my clients over the last 2 years since we have predominantly went remote. It allows employers to focus on results and outcomes. Again, redundant point. If you hear it enough times, maybe you'll believe it. But at the end of the day, remote performance management removes considerations that are often mistaken for positives. Because performance management, when it's done virtually, must be in real time. So one of the things that you're going to see, one of the things you may have experienced, or one of the things you may know of that is a pitfall of performance management, is that you're in the office every day and you're working together. So because you see each other working and you're all doing each other's jobs, you don't necessarily know on a day-to-day basis what the outcomes are. You see everything else. And then you have your performance management or your performance appraisal review at the end of the year or every 6 months. And then, in between there, you just go back to seeing each other work every day. So my question to all of you is, doing a performance appraisal every 6 months or every year, is that really an accurate measurement of what your employees are achieving, of how good they could be if only things were, monitored on a day-to-day basis? Virtual work requires that you look at outcomes on a day-to-day basis, on a week-by-week basis. There's no way around it. When someone's not doing their job at work, it could be in the office, it could be months before you figure it out, depending on what kind of deadlines they have, what kind of outcomes they're required to achieve, what it is that they do in a day. When you're online, typically, if someone's not meeting an outcome, and someone's not meeting a result or a requirement that needs to happen, you'll recognize it right away. And because you're online, it's simple and easy to deal with it right away. So in effect, it's my opinion that performance management being done in real time is well more easy when it's done virtually rather than being done in the office with all the predisposed biases that you may have about what is good work. So again, because, and this is relatively important, it's a business consideration, but we're all in business in one way or the other, or working for someone who's in business. But at the end of the day, what this is going to do, this look at outcomes and results and all that kind of stuff, it's going to provide you with more quantifiable, what's the word I'm looking for? More accurate data that has a basis, data that you can quantify. And what does that do for you? That leads to you making the right decisions on promotions, increases in compensation, bonuses, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know, and if you've never experienced this in your work career, I would consider you to be a unicorn. But if you've never met somebody in an organization that was promoted because they were friends with the boss, or they got along with everybody, not necessarily the best worker, but they got along with everybody. There's a whole myriad of reasons why people get promotions and get pay increases and get better compensation that have nothing to do with actual output. The virtual performance management takes all of that away. Less micromanagement, solid remote performance management should set goals and expectations from the onset. So what you see in a day, because what you see in a day-to-day basis, and this is, of all the things on here, this is the thing that I've noticed is the biggest difference. I've had employees in an office environment with my clients become very dependent on direction. They get in, and unfortunately, it goes both ways. I've lost some employees in a virtual environment because they become so accustomed to getting direction that they don't know how to work independently anymore, that they need a boss telling them what to do on a day-to-day basis. They need a boss, not necessarily micromanaging, but having that meeting with them once a week and saying, okay, this is what we need you to achieve this week. Here's your to-do list. Here's what you need to do. We do away with that. And if you're doing your performance, if you're doing your virtual work relation or work arrangement correctly, that whole idea that you're going to be directing employees on a day-to-day basis, that's gone. That's not something you should be measuring. And we're going to get to that point. You should not be measuring the day-to-day when you're doing virtual performance management. That's not what this is about. That's micromanagement. You could do that in an office, even though most employers don't. That's not what this is about. And then automate your process. This is an island all by itself. We're not a company that provides automation. We help companies, set up their automation and manage it. We're not a company that provides it. So I will leave this topic for one of those companies when they do a webinar on the subject. But at the end of the day, you can ask pretty much any manager. And there's maybe a few exceptions to the rule, but most managers that I've come across in my day, they're not a fan of performance management. They realize why it's important. They're going to do it because they have to. But in their day, when they are so busy doing performance appraisals or filling out forms or taking an hour to talk to an employee, it's a pain. So this is an opportunity for your managers and your employees to make it far easier. Automation is one of the things, and if you invest in stocks or you look at any of you see all these companies like Zoom and Team and all these places that have just their stock prices that just went through the roof, it's because there's a need for it. There's always been a need for it, but now there's, it's defined, it's in front of us. So it's a real opportunity to look at your process, put away the paper, put in a program that's automated, it's better for everyone. It's an opportunity that you should be seeing out of the virtual environment. And that's why I say these are lessons we needed to learn in the pandemic. And overall, and this is kind of a summary of everything we just discussed, it creates efficiency. It's a culmination of everything we just discussed. It's outcome-based performance management. It's more reliable data. It's less micromanagement. It's more empowerment for your employees, which we'll touch on. It's automation. It's everything. It's just the right move. It makes sense that virtual environment is in fact ideal for performance management. So we're on the last couple of slides. We've actually went through it pretty quick, so we'll have time for questions and answers. But there's still a lot to cover in these slides, because this is where we break it all down. The myths, challenges, solutions to manage your employees from home. Obviously, a big aspect of performance management is actually managing your employees from home. You can't do performance management unless you're adequately and appropriately managing your employees. So I wanted to start with the myths. I wanted to break them down and say, okay, why this isn't true. So, okay, this is one that kind of got my, I wrote a LinkedIn post on this, and a few people emailed me because they caught on to it. But recently, there was an article that CTV picked up on that was written, or it was a primary writer, but the contributor was a well-known, respected, and very respected at that. This is not a shot, labor lawyer in the GTA, who suggested that working from home is not as productive, that in fact, Canadian employees that work from home are 21% less productive than workers in the office. And if you actually went back and looked at it, one, it's an employment lawyer. So if any of you have ever listened to my webinar or any of my teams on here, you'll know where I'm going with this. There's employment lawyers and there's employee rep and lawyers. The employment law is not black and white. There's push and pull, and each side of the employment law, each side of that bar, they're going to give you the stats, and they're going to twist the stats the way they want you to see it. In fact, the stats are that 21% of employees that are working from home, their productivity decreases as they take on more hours. So I just wanted to put this question out to anybody. Is that not for anybody, regardless of where you work? Are you not more efficient, when you're first, second, third, fourth hour of the day than when it's Friday at 3 or 4 o'clock and you're on your seventh or eighth hour of the day? I don't like the stat just doesn't connect. And it was used to say, the stat was used to say people need to come back into the office, when in fact, the majority of studies throughout the pandemic to this day have stated that workers that work from home on average are as productive or more productive than when they were working in the office. So let's just bust that myth down right off the jump. That's more of a ideological myth to try and justify where you're going to put your people. But at the end of the day, that's not a boundary. So let's take that off the plate right away. Another myth, or a challenge that people see about at-home performance management and working from home, is the lack of supervision, the lack of in-person supervision at that. And to this, I ask, what are you scared of? Like, we've been doing this for 2 years. It's not, you still can supervise your employees. The fact that you can't see their eyeballs, does that make a significant difference? Like, I personally, all of our team works remotely, the entire of HR covered. And I can speak for my HR consultants. I trust my consultants. I want them to go and do their own thing. If they need me, I'm here. But I want my consultants to feel empowered. I don't want them to feel like I'm on top of them all the time. That's not what this is about. And measuring your employees based on outcomes rather than presence, that's all I need. At the end of the week, if I get 5 calls and they're all calls from clients saying how great the consultant is, I'm happy. If I get 5 calls saying the consultant's not returning calls or doing their job or anything like that, then I'll deal with it. But I don't need to be in person to do any of that. So I don't think that, that is, again, I think it's a myth. I don't think it's a valid objection. And I think we can look right by that. Varied work schedules. There's another myth that people put in there, that because people have varied work schedule, it's going to hurt team collaboration. We're not going to be able to meet deadlines. I would argue, and I'm going to, so seeing how I'm on the only person on the microphone, I would argue that technology has made that myth debunk. So like with technology, like we can connect at any point. It's not like you still can't have set meetings. It's not like you still can't have deadlines that the entire team is responsible to meet, each in their own capacity. All this means is people work when they are more efficient. People work, if you wake up in the morning and you're a morning person and you start working at 8 o'clock in the morning and you work through to 2 o'clock and you just get a boatload done, awesome. If you're an afternoon person and you get up in the morning and you do some admin tasks, and some things that really aren't that important, maybe you start your day at 10, who knows? But at the end of the day, if you're more efficient in the afternoon or evenings or weekends, whatever it is when you like to work, that's when you are working. That's why this works, because your workers are more productive when your workers are more productive. They know when they're most productive, and you're giving them the freedom and you're empowering them to work when they're most productive, provided they reach their outcomes. That's all that matters here. The problem, and we're going to touch this on the last slide, is that when you start to put a performance management in place that is based on a set schedule, that it's based on a 9 to 5, then of course you're going to fail. The performance management system just won't work. When the boss is away, the mice will play. So you can see there, the little logo I put on the red thing is a golf course, because I actually, and this is like 2 weeks ago, I have a client who is sending their 90 something employees, they're bringing them all back to work. They had 5 or 6 that were in the office the entire time, but they're bringing all the rest back to the work. And the exact words of my client were, I know that they're out there playing golf. And I'm like, are they getting their work done? And they go, yeah, but that's not the point. And I go, really? Then what is the point? Because if the goal of performance management is to make sure that they are achieving what they need to achieve to help you reach your goals, and they can make that happen in 35 hours rather than the 45 hours, the person that's in the office working overtime, you see them working, so you think they're doing a great job. If they can fit in a round of golf into their week and they're doing everything they need to, and you're satisfied with their performance, what's the point? Right? And there's a reason. Like the other reason this entire thing is debunked is not only the mice, for lack of better words, not only they outplay, not are employees out, wasting your time and doing their own things on your dime. It's been proven and it's been shown that employees are actually working harder and longer hours than when they were in the office. That's why Ontario has come up with the right to disconnect legislation, because working from home, you have to have self-control, but a lot of employees, especially professional employees who are empowered and take pride in their job and what have you, when they're done dinner at night and they have a couple of options, I said I have dinner with my family, I look to the right, I see my office, I guarantee you I'm going to be in my office at some point that evening. It just is the way it is. I get up on Saturday morning, I work. I get up on Sunday morning, I work. That's what your employees are doing. So at the end of the day, let's say I squeeze in a round of golf on a Friday afternoon, but I exceed my goals for the week. Who cares when I did it? That's what your performance management system needs to measure. Communication will suffer. And I love this one as far as the myth goes. Obviously, with technology, that's just not a thing, right? Like, you could communicate online, you could communicate on the phone. Yes, stats have shown, and I will give them this. So if there's any myth here that has somewhat of a credibility to it, I'll give it this one just to show you I'm not completely biased, because stats have shown that communication, albeit more effective, has lessened in some employees' cases. In other words, there's going to be some employees that, unless you're reaching out to them, they're not reaching out to you. Unless a team member is reaching out to them, they're not reaching out to you. And that's something you can absolutely address. That is a reality of our new reality. So that's something you should and absolutely could address in your performance management system. But that said, that doesn't mean you tear it all down. Most employees are striving in an environment where there's less meetings, where they're not expected to talk at the water cooler all day, that they don't have to have a set lunch. They have to take a half hour off for lunch and then come back to their job. Most employees are striving in that. And communication, that's going to be the cornerstone of any performance management system, whether you be in person or be virtual. So that there is some work there. There is some monitoring there that you have to be aware of in your performance management system. But as I said, that is a reality of the new reality. It was a reality of the old reality. It's something that stays and is important. So you need to make it part of your system. So this is the last slide, and this kind of summarizes everything. And then we'll break to Q&A, and then we'll let you guys get on with the rest of your week. The key goal here to make your virtual performance system work is to deprioritize, begging your pardon, the transactional aspect of work and focus on the skills for success in our new reality. Again, if you're going to keep the same matrix and you're going to do your performance management system is based on the same things that you were judging pre-pandemic, working from home, then your employees are going to fail, because you're grading them or you're measuring against something that no longer exists. The goalposts have moved, right? If we don't accept that to start, that working from home, working virtually is different than working in the office. So the system for which you measure people has to be indicative of that. If that's not something you're willing to accept, then your performance management system is doomed to fail, right? So again, just to reiterate, don't evaluate your employee against pre-pandemic objectives. Concentrate on employee growth, communication, and adaptability. So let's think about what got us through this crisis, right? Did pumping out 10 widgets an hour get us through this crisis? Did your employees literally being online, being at home instead of in the office, did that get us through the crisis? It's the skill sets that your employees had, the communication, their ability to grow, because when you're working on your own, there is a certain amount of isolation there. So you need to encourage people to self-develop, to grow, to communicate, to be adaptable, be flexible. That's what this is all about. We want our employees to be adaptable. We want our employees to be flexible, but then we try to plug in the same performance management system into our virtual workplace and show no sign of adaptability or flexibility ourselves, which is, I'm assuming, why all of you are here, which is great. I can't read that behind. Oh, there you go. Do your employees display empathy, resilience, and capacity to adapt? So instead of saying, instead of measuring skills, instead of considering how quickly someone gets something done, if they're available from 9 to 5, things like that have been traditional bases or stalwarts in most performance management systems, let's look at skills. Let's look at skills that are going to help people be successful at home. We all know that there's a public health crisis right now. right? And I do think that as some people come back to work and there is more interaction and, especially a move towards a hybrid for a lot of those employees who do feel isolated working from home, we have to understand what kind of employee do you want? What kind of employee is going to be able to make this work and be successful at working from home and getting the things done that you need done? Empathy, resilience, capacity of that. These are the things that you should be tailoring your performance management system to measure, not necessarily transactional HR duty or transactional aspects of your work life. Are your employees strong team players? Do they collaborate? These are the things, again, that got us through the pandemic. This is what you should be rewarding behaviors for. These are the employees of the future. These are the employees that are going to carry you and help you achieve your goals working from home. So they require a different skill set than the person who's the chatty Cathy at work or is always around the water cooler, the person that got the promotion because they're nice to everybody or they suck up to the boss, right? So that's gone. That's not the people we need to be successful. We have to stop rewarding people for that. What we need to start rewarding people for is having these skill sets. That's what's going to make your virtual performance management system work. Finally, to summarize, you need to redesign your performance management to reflect everything we've talked about, your new reality. So the 3 key points, you want a results based on metrics for transactional HR, right? So outcomes, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for outcomes, not process. You want to measure skills that will allow for success in our new reality. That's important. That's what this slide is about. And then finally, I'll be honest, this is a matter of opinion. This is a matter of preference. This is a matter of, can your company do this? But one of the things that I've noticed, and I've noticed this quite a bit, is I've had managers come to me and say, I'm having difficulty doing performance management because I don't interact with my reports like I used to. Like, I don't have to give them as much direction. I just see that they're getting their job done, but I don't know how they're doing it. I don't know their efficiencies. First off, that's inherently wrong. You don't need to know how they're doing it. You just need to know that they're getting their job done and it's getting done well. But it is for the traditional manager who coaches people and manages people and disciplines when necessary to make sure they're doing what they need to get done what they need to get done, they're doing what they need to get done to get the outcomes. This has changed. They just need to be there for support, provide some direction, be a conduit for communication, and make sure that the outcomes are there. The employees are empowered. The employees are doing this from home and they're doing it on their own. So it's difficult sometimes for a manager to actually provide constructive feedback or positive feedback that's accurate and truly reflective of what's going on when they're not in touch as much as they were. So it's not a bad idea to ask your employees to provide their own self-assessments and start there. It's not, that's not a new thing. There's a lot of people that do that in their current performance management system. I just say that with the new virtual environment that we're in and tailoring your performance management system to that, it becomes a more practical, important model for performance management. So that's the bulk of it's a little bit quicker than we usually do. Usually we go in about 45 minutes and we're about 40 minutes or 45, 50 minutes and we're about 40 minutes. So not bad because it gives us time for questions if there are any. Just a quick little plug for HR Cover, and I'll do this very quick because I know that's not necessarily why you're here. We are your external in-house HR team. So unlike a lot of HR companies, we have online, we have on-call, and we have consulting. We do compliance, we have a health and safety product, we have health and safety experts and HR experts. We do everything in the employee lifecycle. There's nothing HR that we cannot do, literally nothing. From hire to compensation, to terminations, to pay equity, performance management. What we're doing here, we do this for companies all the time, help them put it together. HR strategy, that's what we do. We're a full service consulting firm. So, thanks for giving me the latitude to pitch that. That's it. Thank you. There's my contact information if you have any questions about the presentation, if you have any questions about performance management that you don't feel comfortable asking now, or if you need to reach out to me for anything HR, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always around. And to you, Allison.
Darcy, thank you. Lots of information and lots of good information to think about. I think the last couple of years have not been easy for anyone. And I think it's important to acknowledge that lots of employers have done a great job pivoting and trying to support their employees and kind of do the best job they can in our current environment. So I will open it up to questions. I'll just kind of monitor the bottom here. So anyone that has questions, feel free to post them in the chat and we'll stay online and Darcy can answer them. We will be putting a copy of today's presentation on our website. I know that's one of the questions that's come in. So it'll be posted on our website in the next week or so. So you can look right on the Leslie Group's website for a copy of it. Darcy, one of the questions that's come in is, do you have a sample PM?
A sample PM, yes. Like we have, beg your pardon, we do have a sample PM. If that's something someone's interested in, they can just reach out to me directly, if that's okay.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And then next question, we currently don't have a formal performance management system in place. Do you recommend any specific PM platforms?
The PM platforms, there's so many out there right now, and I don't want to do a plug for one company necessarily without doing the other. I've had experience with Bamboo HR, most of my clients that use it are pretty happy with it. So that's a good starting place. But I wouldn't discourage you from comparing and checking out for performance management platforms. And I can tell you this from my experience, it's not so much what it does or how it does it, it's how it suits you, right? So it's a really good idea to demo a couple of different platforms and see which one works best for your style of reporting in particular, and the administration part of it. So there was one performance management system I used, which I won't because it wasn't a positive experience, which I won't name because I don't want to discredit them, where the performance management process, like the actual scheduling the performance management, doing the performance management, and then the admin that was required, even though it was a platform, was more onerous than what I wanted to use when I was actually paying for something on a monthly basis. So it wasn't that it wasn't a good platform, it just wasn't for me. So it's really important that, do the demos, and then, start with Bamboo HR as a good starting point, because again, my clients seem to be satisfied with that, and you'll find the right one.
Excellent, thanks, Darcy. So there aren't any more questions. So does the company offer training WSIB? Oh,
do we offer WSIB? Yes, we do. If it means anything, I started out when I came out of university, I started out at WSIB. So, and my first official HR job was a disability manager. So I'm good at claims management, all that stuff. And I work with the folks from the Leslie Group quite often with their clients to that regard, because they do a great job at benefits and I try to support them however I can.
And the same attendees of the annual mandatory training sessions for employees?
Sorry, I didn't catch the question, Allison. I apologize.
It was sort of a follow-up to her WSIB. So her next comment is the annual mandatory training sessions for employees.
Yes, we can do anything, like as far as the training piece and all that kind of jazz. We do custom training. We have online training. Our online training is mostly limited to compliance, but we do custom training that is both in person and virtual. So anything that you were looking, just reach out and we can work something out for you.
Perfect. Thanks, Darcy. Next question. What are your thoughts on organizations that have dropped PRs completely due to the data that shows they're a waste of time and create more issues than they help with?
I think now, again, if you're one of those companies, I apologize for this in advance. I am an advocate of performance management. And the reason being is, one, for all the reasons I mentioned, obviously, it's an objective way to actually measure your performance of your employees and reward accordingly. It's also an objective way to find deficiencies in employees and provide positive, constructive outcomes. And a company that only has, and it's important to keep in mind, I'm going to go a little bit off the question to get to the question. Progressive discipline is different from performance management. If you have an issue, a performance issue, and you put them through progressive discipline, you're not going to be able to fire them for cause. You cannot take performance and put it through progressive discipline. It's a punitive process. Performance management has to be managed as a lack of understanding, a lack of ability, a lack of willingness, what have you. It can't be measured as a disciplinary thing. So if you're a company that has scrapped performance management and you only have the disciplinary process, then you've really handcuffed yourself to a certain extent, in my opinion. The other aspect of it, as I said, it's the creation of the baseline, right? Like again, coming from a background in disability management, 20 some odd years ago, mind you, but I would still consider myself an expert. Coming from the background of disability management, if you don't know where someone was, how they were performing, yes, you got the job description, yes, you could see their, but if you don't know how they were performing and what they did before they went on a disability or a leave or WSIB or what have you, and then you brought them back, when WSIB says to you, they can come, or a doctor says to you, they can come back at 90%. What does that mean? Where's your relative? Where's your baseline? So there's a whole bunch of good reasons for performance management. Don't get me wrong, I'm empathetic. I struggle. If a performance management system isn't done right or it's not effective, it could be very inefficient and very time consuming. And it's also mentally laborious for employees, because a lot of employees, quite frankly, they dread performance management. And that's because, unfortunately, the company has made performance management a punitive tool. Performance management should be something that's welcome. The only people that should dread it are the people that know that they're not doing their job well enough. So that's, again, I get it. I understand. My opinion just differs.
Perfect, thank you. Lots of good questions. So our next question is, do you have any experience incorporating company values into the PR? And what do you advise is the best way to incorporate it?
Well, I think that when you incorporate company values into the PR, you really have to start looking at, how would you say, what are the measurables of that value, right? So like for you, it's like if a company value was diversity, equity, inclusion, which it should be for every company, and more companies are demanding it. But if that's a company value, what are the measurements of diversity, equity, inclusion? So if you're looking at your HR department and you're going to say, or your management team, and you're going to do performance management for them, what's your performance measurement there? Are we hiring more diverse people? Are our panels, are our questions, is our process, is that whole thing that creates systemic bias and systemic discrimination? Have we scrubbed all that to make sure that we're an open, accepting, diverse company? So a lot of values you may not be able to incorporate because it's more of the way you want to be, or the way you have to be to work there. But there are a lot of things that are measurable, and you need to find the measurables out of your values, if that makes sense.
Right. Perfect. Thank you. Next question. Is best practice in PR to evolve goals around the business goals or individual developmental goals?
Both. Yeah, that's a great question. So like because it's actually something that, if we were just doing a thing on performance management, period, and we weren't touching on the virtual aspect, I definitely would have incorporated it. So thank you, whoever that was, for asking it. My favorite PR system is one that does performance management for individual development goals, one that does it for your team, one that does it for company goals. And then if you base compensation and you base promotions and all that kind of stuff, then the person that you want to promote, the person that you want to bring to the next level, is someone that's been able to use their personal growth to enhance the team, to enhance the company. And that's why it's important for you to do it all. And, along the same lines of incorporating your values, the great question the person before asked, that's a great place to find it. If you're a learning organization, right, then you're going to be encouraging individual growth and career development and things of that nature. That's something that is immeasurable. That's something you can literally make a part of your performance management process. So, I know someone asked a lot earlier about a template for PAs and performance management. We have it. There's no doubt. But I will tell you, templates are dangerous. And performance management systems especially should be customized. They should be branded to your culture, to your identity, to your outcomes, to the type of employer you want to be in, the type of company that employees want to work for. So when you start off with a template, that's great, but you got to get it to a point where it suits you. And that model of measuring both individual growth and company success or company objectives is ideal.
Perfect. Thanks, Darcy. So So it looks like that is all the questions. So certainly want to say thank you to everyone that participated and asked questions. And Darcy, always good to connect. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. I think, in our ever-changing world, every tool we can use to be able to sort of adapt to our new reality and try to help employees be the best version of themselves is always valuable. So thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you everyone for your time today. If you have any follow-up questions or want more information, I'd encourage you to either reach out to your Leslie Group representative or directly to Darcy at HR Covered. There's lots of other services that they provide as well in the realm of HR, not just performance management. So certainly encourage you to reach out to him. There's lots of thank yous and fantastic presentation feedback in the chat. So thank you, Darcy. I'm assuming you can see all those.
I have been paying attention.
And the recording will be on our website. So we will post it as soon as it's available. So thank you, everyone. Take care, stay healthy, and appreciate your time.